Hello everyone, it's your favorite astronaut in space here, and it's no secret that with any RPG, there's always going to be some player options or player races or classes that you're just not going to vibe with on a personal level, and anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is probably lying to you. But I wanted to do this video of what I consider to be my top 10 least favorite D&D races. Now, player races specifically. And how I'm structuring this video is not super objective. What I mean by this is I'm not trying to say that you're a bad person if you like playing this race, or it's bad if this is there in the game, or they ruin the game, or anything like that, for the most part. I'll get to my mild exceptions later. But overall, this is purely just my personal opinion. Both player races I don't really have an interest in playing in, and ones I just think are kind of lame, at least on a personal level. But once again, this is all highly subjective. And you're going to see why when we get into it. So, how about we do that? Let's begin. Now, the 10 will be broken up into 3 subcategories. The first one based on boring, but I see the idea. These are player races that I see the idea behind them, or I think there's some aspects of them that could be cool, but for some way, shape, or form, I feel missed the mark, if you get my drift. Starting off with the Yuan-Ti Pureblood. Yuan-Ti Pureblood? Is that how you say it? I can never say it right. Anyway, they're basically snake people in D&D, so they kind of fulfill exactly what you think they do as far as their trope and general identity goes. I feel like they are almost good, and I've seen some people play them in ways I think were fun. However, I just think they're missing something. Maybe it's like a visual component, I'm not sure, but I feel like they just don't quite hit the mark for me. Personal opinion, of course. Next up is the Gith, or Gith Sarai, or Gith Yankee, really both of them. I'm throwing both of them in here. Listen, I get the idea of space monks fighting squids and all that, fighting the mind flayers and all that jazz. And listen, it's all kind of cool, but just like the Yuan-Ti Pureblood, but even worse, in my opinion, they just don't click to me. I feel like they're just really missing something. They just feel so bare bones, maybe. Maybe if I read Spelljammer or something like that, I'd feel differently. But as far as I've read and as far as I've seen, they're just kind of basic, not really fun or interesting as I feel the concept should be of race of space monks battling mind flayers across the plane in a state of perpetual civil war. I just feel like they're missing something, you know? Just me, though. And lastly for this category is the Auto Gnome, which is just, why does this exist? I mean, I get in the lore reason they exist because gnomes build these kind of things, but like, I just feel Warforged does their entire stick but better. And even I think the Warforged used to work, but I feel like at least it's thematically consistent. The Auto Gnome just feels basic to me. Like all my issues with the android race and Starfinder, but worse and less interesting and nothing going on here. Like I said, I get the idea behind them, but they just don't click to me, honestly. This next category is now for the races I feel like are just, there's just nothing going on with them. I don't feel like they have anything really like cool or interesting really grab me, you know what I'm saying? So that's why you get in this spot. Starting off with a halfling. Yes, I know that's gonna be sacrilegious to a lot of people, but let me just make my case here, okay? The only reason we have them is just because they were in Lord of the Rings. That's it. Because we wanted to have the hobbits because Lord of the Rings had them. That's it, if you ask me. I've never been compelled by the halflings lore in D&D. I find basically none of it super interesting. And I was going to say that, oh, well, it's kind of interesting that no one knows where the species came from, and they just kind of showed up one day. And then I realized that D&D, at least in Forgotten Realms, has the 6/5 creator races that already have that stick of no one knows where they came from, and humanity's already one of them. So, like, you've already set up a situation where the one thing that was kind of interesting about halflings has been completely overridden by their taller cousins. But, to be fair, I understand why people play them, because you can still play the whole short creature stick, and, of course, that luck fee is just broken. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be toned down or anything. I'm just saying that alone is enough reason to play a halfling. So, like, I honestly don't want to put them here, but, like, I just don't feel they have anything going on, you know? Just me, I guess. Next up is the Hanuis. I don't know how to pronounce that. But basically, they're the flying monkey people from Spelljammer. You know, the one that got some controversy with Spelljammer because everyone assumed they were black people for some reason. I don't know why people keep wanting to try to equivalent black people with monkeys and monsters. It feels kind of racist if you ask me. But that's a different story for a different day. Back to the Hanuis. I'm not compelled by their story at all. I don't find anything particularly interesting about them. Their gliding, flying thing was kinda neat. It allowed you to do some pretty wacky stuff before it got nerfed into the ground. But also, like, if I wanted to play a flying creature, I would just play an Arakakra. or any of the 13 subclasses that'll give you basically flying, or I would just learn the flight spell. Like the one gimmick is an ability that it's not easy to get, but there's clear paths to get it if you want to go down that route, or tons of magic items, or just get a Pegasus. And nothing about them is particularly interesting. Honestly, I think Big Monkey would have been funnier. So you could play King Kong, Donkey Kong, DK, you know what I mean, and all that jazz. But no, we just get these flying monkey guys. Honestly, I think a Sugar Glider would have made a better basis for a player race, but that's just me. Next up is the Fairy race. The Fairy race, this one. Why do you exist? I mean this in all sincerity. I don't know what the purpose of this is. Like, okay, I get it. You want to play Tinkerbell and that kind of thing, right? But, like, what else do you have going on? You're just a fairy. You're just a fairy. I don't get it. Especially, and once again, if they were like the only Fae race in D&D or Fae associated race, I could almost see it. Then you could play with all the Fae tropes specifically with them. But no, a lot of other races have connection to the Fae, or just straight up are Fae creatures, or at least by D&D logic. Once again, the elves are just standing in the room menacingly. And there's a lot of others that have the Fae subtype that I don't even think should have it. But so the point is, your one gimmick is being outdone by everyone else, by a lot of other people in the room. And they don't, in my opinion, have anything else particularly going on. Maybe if they played into some gimmick of, like, I don't know, if they really leaned into, like, the Fae court aspect, or leaned into, like, the video game helping Navi kind of thing, or just the Tinkerbell angle, or something, I don't know. But as far as I view them, they're just generic, we're small fairy creatures, and then you ask them, what else you got going on there? And they don't have anything to tell you. So, yeah, that's how you got in this spot. Last up for this category / section or whatever is the Centaur, which, I guess technically doesn't belong here in the category of, I know why there's this, because people want to play Centaurs, but they kind of fall into the fairy-ish situation of, like, what's your exact deal? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't really know what you're supposed to do beyond I'm a horse person and prepare to get all the MLP jokes in the party. But potentially, unlike the fairy, which at the very least is just a serviceable player race, the Centaur creates tons of player issues just revolving around, like, the logistics of the horse body and the lack of normal legs. And all this stuff, right? So, at least the fairy was unoffensive from a gameplay perspective. The Centaur is the first that really just actively causes issues with the game, and not like in a fun game-breaking way where, you know, it's kind of funny. No, just in a, how am I supposed to deal with this? And for all the effort of dealing with it, you get a very mid-player race, if you ask me. So, yeah, not much to say here. Not a fan, really. But I'm not hating on it, necessarily, if that makes sense. Now for the category and the top, or I guess bottom 3 of player races. These, in my opinion, are the ones that I consider borderlines to strip a wasted spot. Their existence in the game either actively hinders a more interesting version of that player race existing, or just straight up the time put into it was just not worth the effort, or worse yet, their entire idea is wasted, or it would keep other player races from existing just because that spot is already kind of taken by these guys. So these are the ones I consider borderline bad for the game, if not straight up. So let's start with number 3, the Minotaur, which, listen, I'm going specifically off the one that was like the updated version, you know, where they took away the sandstone ability modifiers for player races. Blech. So, I don't know if it was, I think it was an earlier version of them in an earlier book that might have been a little better, but the one we got here, the one I know and have, I'm not a fan of. Not that Minotaurs couldn't be a cool player race, but these ones felt like they tried really hard to, like, make them soft and friendly, and then it took away the appeal of being a bloody Minotaur. You know what I mean? Jason the Architect Minotaur was not a nice guy, and obviously a player race should not be all evil like that thing was, but, like, this should be some edge, you know? A little, like, play or something, but these ones felt so soft and squishy and just not interesting to play. I mean, honestly speaking, the Centaur race has, the Satyr race has more edge to them, and not like in the, even in the violent sense. So it's like the Minotaur just feels like a wasted spot of what could have been a cooler version of the Minotaur. And honestly, I wouldn't mind in some D&D sayings remaking the Minotaur to be a more interesting player race, but that's just me. I will say the Labyrinth thing is kind of cool, but it feels more like a tacked on reference rather than a part of their society, if that makes sense. Second place, we have the Hobgoblin. I'm gonna be quite frank here. You wanna know how this race here? Because I'm not sure what the Hobgoblin is supposed to be. Like, I just don't get it, okay? Like, I get what goblins are, obviously. They're a staple of fantasy. I get what, like, the bugbear is. But even if I'm not particularly a big fan of them. I don't understand what a hobgoblin is even properly supposed to be. And maybe that's on me, but nothing about them is even vaguely interesting. All I see is kind of wasted space. And I feel nothing when I look at them. And as a player race, it's like, wow, we took a mid enemy that I barely remember exists and turned it into something you can play as. And it's like, why would I want to do this, sir? And then the game would look at me and tell me, I don't know. Because, like, even the stats and the bonuses aren't particularly interesting. Oh, wow, you can do the 8 action better. If only I was ever going to use that. But no, it's very meh and very boring. And I feel like they're taking up a wasteful spot just because literally any other race could have went here. You could have put anything in these pages, and almost certainly it would have been better. Just go dig up some random player race that hasn't been used in an edition in like 13 years and throw it in here. Would have been better. Create a weird variations. Rip off an existing TTRPG race or a video game race from something like you ripped off for 4th edition. I don't care. Just anything would have been better than the bloody Hobgoblin. Except for one. In number 1 place, my least favorite player race, and the one I think actively deserves to exist the least, is the Hexblood. Because why on earth does this exist? I am not sure why this exists, and I do not like any of it. Because, like, listen, I'm not a big fan of hags in D&D as is. I just don't find them a super interesting concept, I feel, and the fact there's like 17 different types of them, and a whole bunch of lore doesn't really help. But, even worse so, I don't find their children to be an interesting thing. I just don't find any of it interesting. The stats don't particularly interest me, even if, objectively, the stats of the Hexblood are fairly decent. But, like, if I wanted a trickster race that could do some illusion-type magic, I would add a Kitsune. Oh, wait, I already did that. But, like, even on top of that, the general vibe I get from the Hexblood, what I think they're supposed to be, is supposed to be like this edgy one, you know, cursed with dark powers, you know, because of their family line and blah, 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 stuff like that, right? And listen, I'm born in the early 2000s. I eat edge stuff like that like it's my breakfast. I live off this kind of stuff. You tell me, hey, guy that has edgy powers that walks around wearing mostly black and white while he punches bad guys, and I'm saying, please, you can take my money. But this is clearly supposed to kind of be that trope, but it's not interesting. It's not cool. And worst of all, not only is it just not interesting to me at all, but it actively takes up the trope of being that thing. When Live and the Drow do it better, anything does this better than this. This is boring. I don't like it. It's actively offensive to me in the sense that I want a way cooler player race to take its spot, and it should have had it. Heck, the other races in the book that came out with the Curse of Strahd supplement, Guide to Ravenloft, that had other races that did this trope better, like the Dampier. So, like, this thing's goal is even more redundant. And even like, if I could rip off Starfinder or Pathfinder again, if this was like a versatile heritage type thing you could slap onto other races, I would be less offended by its existence. But no, the game expects you to take this as your player race and just be like, this is meh. I would like to not do this. And I'd rather, if I wanted to play someone with, Curse Magic Bloodline, I would just play a Bloody Tiefling who do everything this race does, but cooler and with more style. Literally. But anyway, that's just my opinion, of course. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sure I'll get some comments down below how I'm wrong, and I welcome them all. Anyway, unless they're stupid or something, I don't know, and then we can argue about it in the comment section. Or you could like my video, of course. That'd be nice. And subscribe. I like subscribing. Anyway, and I will see you all next time.